Truth be told, every champion has felt it. Every president has felt it. Every king has felt it. Every lion has felt it. Every winner has felt it. Every soldier has felt it. Every victorious person has felt it. The urge to quit.
Crossroads, life's tolls, life goes. I gotta win. W my lockdown. You can't rewind.
Hey, how are you guys doing today? This is your host, Sonya, with the Remember Who You Are 222 podcast. I have my guest, Veronica, here with us today. She is a leadership coach and life strategist. How are you doing today, Veronica?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, Sonya. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited and glad that you wanted to come on as guest. So definitely excited to hear your story as well. So tell the listeners like a little bit about your story and how you came to doing what you do now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my story actually started in July 1979. That was the month and year I was born in Central America, specifically the country of Nicaragua. And I was born on the day of the revolution. So it was a very chaotic birth for my mom. So from the get-go, going through the war, my mother actually lost her youngest brother in the war as an execution. My mom was actually very involved in the war as opposition, trying to overthrow the current government in the country of Nicaragua. So my coming to this lifetime was very tumultuous. Clearly, I was literally being born as bombs were going off. My mom was trying to flee the country. And it turns out that she was actually able to get out of the country to El Salvador to have me just enough to be able to give birth to me. And then days later went back to Nicaragua. So I was brought up in a very militarized dynamic in our family. My mom was in the military. So I grew up with this mom who was very independent in that era, single mom, because my dad actually was part of the government, but the standing government. So they weren't even supposed to be together. So they were in opposition. So when the war started, he fled the country and never looked back. So my mom was a single mom living in a war-torn country with a new baby girl. Her biggest supporter, which was her brother, was gone. So my mom really had this very masculine energy. Like one of my first memories of my mom was, her camo and her combat boots and a 38 on her hip, So, and growing up, and I still am very proud of that about her, but she didn't have the demeanor or that softness that, you necessarily want as the daughter. My mom just wasn't the nurturing type. She was constantly in survival mode. And through that, growing up through that, it was, get your shit together. There's no time for pity. There's no time to cry. Like, you need to get your shit together and move forward. My mom met my stepfather, who actually just passed away 2 weeks ago. And he moved us to the US. And even then, growing up in the States, it was, now it was like survival of the fittest again. You have to come out here and work your butt off and try to make it in this country, which they did pretty well up until when I was 14, we ended up homeless. So we were living in San Francisco, living in our car, trying to make ends meet, which was very difficult. I remember early 8, 9 years old, I was waking up at 4 a.m, delivering newspapers with my mom, trying to make some kind of income. So for me, my childhood was really, learning how to take care of yourself, making sure that you had to earn your keep, whether it was that meal for the day or going to school. So I didn't really I didn't grow up with this like quote unquote normal childhood where you get to play in a playground and go on play dates and things like that. I had to pretty much work at a very early age. Fast forward, I graduated from high school, got a job right away, started earning a significantly good income at 18 years old, and going to college just wasn't going to be part of my story, right? You know, make ends meet at home and also raise my youngest sibling. So I gained a lot of responsibility, grit, and perseverance at a very young age, just because I had to. And I feel like what I do now, because all those experiences were very traumatic, and I really didn't get to resolve the pain that came along with all those experiences, because it was go, 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 right? And my mom instilled in me that there's no time to slow down. There's another goal that you need to meet, and you always have to do better than the last. So it's this constant rat race, right? Trying to do the best next thing and doing it better than most people. So by the time I was 20, 21, I was very independent and a very go-getter type of person, but I did have, looking back, I was very reserved. I was very closed off. I had the same masculine energy that my mom had. I wasn't very girly, so to speak. I was very much a tomboy. And once I turned 30, I realized that my relationship with my mom was actually more toxic than supportive. She had a very strong narcissistic, personality. And as I got older and began to do better for myself, the worse our relationship got. And I started to see patterns that I never seen before. And they were starting to become so uncomfortable. Like, just when you know that something in your life or certain people in your life just don't fit the way that they used to. At that point, I had met my husband. I was in love. I wanted to build this life. And she was holding on to me, like, because I was part of her identity, not realizing this at the time. And the more I wanted to build my own life, the worse our relationship got. And that is really what led me to coaching. I knew that I needed to work through something because it became so unbearable. The way that our relationship was so codependent, that really what led me to the coaching was like, if I don't do something about this, it's going to ruin my marriage, because it was just very, very toxic. And I didn't have the tools at the time to be able to make not just the distinction, but the separation, a healthy separation. And that's when I learned about coaching. I went through the program, and it was a 10-month program, very extensive, where as a coach, you have to deal with your own traumas and traumas before you can go and help anybody else. So I have to say it was an excruciating experience, because you're looking at yourself in the mirror and looking back of all the things that you've done or haven't done, and the patterns are in there, and realizing like, wow, these are generational traumas that get passed down through generations. And I also knew that if I ever wanted to be a mother, I had to heal all of that, because I didn't want to commit the same mistakes that my parents made. And if I didn't go through it or try to understand it, how was I to know if I was doing better than what my parents tried to do with me? And that's, been 13 years, been coaching ever since, fell in love with the profession, passionate about helping people develop their higher self, the better version of themselves, and being a guide mostly at this point, to give people a safe space container for them to be able to go through that dark night of the soul that we all have to go through to get to the other side.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I love that. I feel like your story is so like amazing in the fact that human beings are so resilient.
Yeah.
You know, growing up in a country that's at war like that, and a mother, it's funny. When you mentioned your mother and the picture of her, it reminded me of myself when I was in the Marine Corps. And I was in the Marine Corps for 14 years. And for a lot of my time, I actually had that tough exterior. I was always the tomboy, because I was basically raised in a home that was just always chaotic. So I kind of got used to that.
Yeah, it becomes an armor, which the picture in the beginning of this video and looking at your website, it really resonates because I've had those images of myself in my head, right? Like you're wearing this armor.
Mhm.
When people from the external see it, it looks amazing. It's badass, right? And not everybody can pull that off.
Mhm.
But what most people don't understand is that armor, whether it's physical or metaphorically, it's
Mhm.
extremely heavy,
Mhm.
extremely heavy to carry around. And for me personally, by the time I was 30, I was like, this shit is just too heavy. I can't and I won't, I don't want to.
Mhm.
And I realized that shield, that armor, it wasn't just mine, it was my mother's.
Mhm.
It's like she passed it down to me, and I was terrified
Mhm.
to unbeknownst to me, at some point taking that off and handing it down to my kids.
Right.
I
It's
really
like,
didn't want to do that,
yeah. And that's the crazy thing that people don't realize is that we actually carry the generations worth of trauma in our DNA.
We
And
do.
so it really just naturally comes out, even if, even if we weren't necessarily raised by the same person, like those things still come out eventually. And so we really do have to do the work. We have to do the work to break the generational trauma.
Mm-hmm. And it's different for everyone. Not necessarily does everyone have to go find a coach to do it.
Mhm.
But being conscious enough to know that there is work to be done and what methodology is best for you to get to where you want to go. For me, it just happened to be that coaching fell on my lap, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that this was actually a thing.
Mhm.
In my earlier years, when the very few times that I, thought about going to college, I was like, oh, I really love psychology. I love sociology. I love people. I love to understand people and behavior, but I didn't want to be a psychotherapist. And,
Mhm.
back then that was the only option, or the popular option. Like, I don't want to be a clinical psychologist. It
Mhm.
never resonated with me. So I never pursued it. But in my very first years, I wasn't a huge reader, by the way. School was like the biggest inconvenience because I had to go to work. I had to deal with, being homeless, taking care of my younger brother, like,
Mhm.
delivering newspapers. Like, school my nervous system wasn't primed to go learn. It was primed to survive, right?
Yeah.
So college never crossed my mind. And just the thought of sitting in a classroom for 4 or 5 years to get a degree just didn't resonate for me. But the interest was there, right?
Mhm.
One of the first books that I ever picked up was How to Make People Do What You Want.
Yeah.
Which, in the wrong hands, it's a terrible skill, but I was
Yeah.
so intrigued by the birth order, or, deep psychology and human behavior, things
Mhm.
like that. So I knew that I was being pulled in that direction. It just, now looking back, I realized that those first 30 years, I had to go through all of that trauma and pain and perseverance and resilience to truly embody
Mhm.
what I have acquired with knowledge, to be able to apply it
Mhm.
in a way that can truly help other people. Because I'm not just passing down, cognitive knowledge, which
Mhm.
anybody can do. You can pick up a book. But if you lived it and you felt it and you persevered it, you become way more impactful to others because you have that empathy behind your skill set, you know? And at 46 now, I'm so proud of being able to do that for others. And I realized that my pain had its purpose, all along. And as
Yeah.
those that are going through it in the moment, it sucks. It's painful. You feel like you're not doing good enough. You're not good enough. But if we can just in the moment remove ourselves and say that this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me, we can move past that pain and hopefully find the beauty in it or the lesson in it so that you can move forward faster. And it's possible because I do it with clients all the time. I do it with my kids all the time. And, I've been coaching for 13 years, and usually I work obviously with adults, people in leadership roles. And my philosophy through my own experience is that leadership isn't a title or a job criteria as it's been sold to us for decades, but it's more of a core value. It's how you show up, how you live your life. You never put leadership down, right? So my goal as a coach and as a guide for people is to understand that if you can really hone in on what your personal values are as a human being, leadership can't be a part of that. So if you embrace that philosophy, you're a leader with your family, you're a leader with your kids, you're a leader with your clients, you're a leader with your employees, your employer, you're a leader, period. And you don't have to feel compartmentalized anymore. Like a lot of the clients that I have, it's like, I'm a great leader at work. I'm a top producer, like I'm on top of my sales, my team's like he or she's a great leader in the workforce, but at home, things are falling apart. I'm not a leader with my spouse. I'm not a leader with my kids don't respect me. My spouse don't respect me. My parents don't respect me. Well, how can we bring that sense of leadership that you clearly have and infuse it in all of the areas in your life? Now you feel like a whole person, no matter where you are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. I definitely had to go through my time of like self-work and inner work and stuff like that. So I do feel like being in the Marine Corps, I was a great heart-centered leader in my job. But like for me, where I wasn't was at home, like with my personal relationships. My personal relationships, I would let people walk all over me just because that's how I grew up. Like I grew up with my mom just basically, I didn't have a voice. Everything I did was wrong. I couldn't be myself. And so I guess subconsciously I felt I needed to do that to keep people around. But once I learned to actually have standards and self-love is actually a part of the big picture, loving ourselves enough to hold a standard, then it's like you start to see, yeah, people might leave your life, but you're going to attract those higher vibrational people that are actually about love and, stuff like that. So I definitely agree with you 100%. It's funny. I feel like everything is like divinely orchestrated because the interviews I've had the past couple of days kind of link up to where I'm at now, as far as like I'm starting to create, because I was like finding myself and figuring out what do I want to. I know I was meant to be a leader. I know I'm meant to like help people with my story and stuff. And so it was funny that I came to the conclusion of like leadership. And since I was in the Marine Corps for 14 years, it's like how to be a heart-centered leader, basically. And so I created my program finally because I was holding off for the longest time and trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to teach. But it just came to me as I've been doing the work. And I feel like everybody needs a mentor. And I've learned I've been mentored in the past few months, and that's how I've been able to do so much self-work in such a short amount of time. Because I really have been diving deep into it for the past couple of years, because I left my son's father, which was a toxic relationship. But that was where I learned that, like, I hadn't healed from my mother wounds, and there was like all these different things, like all these people in my life that had narcissistic traits. And so I had to go through all that. But I definitely love your story and how it kind of like coincides. And
Yeah, it's very similar, even though not all the details are exactly the same, right? But there's just so much similarities in that. And that's why I think it's so important to do these kinds of things and share this kind of content, because there's people out there who may come across it and say, hey, there's so much similarities in my story too. And they're important to be told. And the more that I tell my story, the more I heal, even though as a coach myself, I too have a coach. And I've been coached for 10 plus years consistently. And I'm still uncovering things that are showing up in my life that, you know, are linked back to certain experiences, whether it's in my childhood, early adulthood, parenting. The moment you have a kid, people don't realize that all that trauma resurfaces depending on where you had that experience, that traumatic experience, and then your kid turns that age and they're doing certain things that just completely trigger certain things. And now you're dumping your trauma into them unbeknownst to you, because you haven't healed it. It's a physical, emotional reaction that your mind hasn't caught up to, but what you're acting out in that moment is that child of yours at 6, 7, 8, when that experience happened to you, you know. And just being self-aware of those things and being able to stop and say, wait, I have a choice to do something different in this moment. Even if you don't know what the right thing is, but just pausing long enough to say, wait, I know this didn't feel right for me when it happened to me. Do I want to recreate the same experience in a whole new generation? You know, and I don't think it was, for me, I don't think it was an accident that I had 2 daughters.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. And before I had kids, I was like, I bet you I'm going to end up with a boy. And I could handle a boy. I thought I could handle a boy because I was masculine energy, like like all those, you know, attributes that are very masculine. I understood that. And then life throws 2 girls at me and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
With this? And it was extremely challenging because now I had to get into this nurturing persona, because it didn't feel natural to me. And the first, gosh, I want to say the first 5 years of being a mom, my kids came back to back. So it's like the universe was trying to shove lesson after lesson after lesson, because they're a year apart.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is really close.
Yeah. So I wasn't done, like, mentally, emotionally, you know, getting used to the first one when the second one was there. You know, so me embracing that nurturing, you know, energy and demeanor and what came with it was extremely difficult for me. I did not enjoy that phase where they're just so dependent on you, whether you're breastfeeding, you're changing diapers, they don't want to leave your side. That felt very imposing to me, because even though I had been doing some work, I hadn't healed everything. So me going through those motions, which is nonstop, you're a mom too. It's like, it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. There's no stopping. And I wasn't very good at that. I mean, I was there and I was challenged and I rose to the occasion because that's what I was taught to do. But it didn't come naturally to me. You know, I struggled with it. fast forward, as they're getting older and they're asking questions and they're challenging you, like they're doing things that obviously were bringing different types of triggers. But by then I had a certain understanding that that's what was happening for me in that moment. So I had to work through all those things as well, so that I can show up in a completely different way than my mom did, because my mom didn't have that opportunity. She didn't have that knowledge about coaching or psychology or any of those things. She was just going through the motions.
Yeah, just in survival.
Exactly. And you show up as a human being, you show up differently when you're in survival versus when you are in that secure, soft space in life where you can stop and think like, this doesn't feel good. I want to take that direction. Or that doesn't feel right. I think it's time for me to leave that relationship. You can't do that when your nervous system is completely shot. There's just no way.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you're completely in subconscious mode, just reacting instead of actually thinking things through.
Yeah, and I feel like, going back to what you said, the self-leadership is so important, because that's really where it starts. And for me, that's one of the core things I love to teach is, what is your self-leadership style? We all have it, and it's all different for every single person, because we may have gained the same attributes through our stories, but your life experience is different than mine. Your interpretation of what happened is completely different than mine. So if you can teach people to understand that they, as self-leaders, they have their own niche in a sense of how they show up, but it's yours. It's uniquely yours. And once you understand what that is, it's easier for you to show up because it's authentic. You don't have to try to put it on, right? It just is.
Yeah, a lot of things that you said definitely resonated with me, as far as like one, being a leader doesn't mean you ever stop learning. Like if anybody ever says that they stop learning, like that's not the right mindset to have, because I feel like a true leader should be always learning. It's a lifelong learning, because there's infinite knowledge, there's infinite possibilities and infinite intelligence. So we should never be at a point where we're just stop learning. There might be somebody that has done more work than us, like our coaches that we go to, but it doesn't make anybody better than the other. It's just it's just how it is. Like, we are able to and I feel like that's a true leader, is actually like being able to be humble, but also acknowledge the work that they've done. So, and then another thing about the kids, yeah, it's interesting how our kids are the biggest ones that bring the triggers out in us. And there were times where my son,
spouses.
oh yeah, that too. Yeah, because basically the people that you're closest to are going to be the mirrors and triggering us, basically. And so those are it's funny. It actually reminds me of a time with my ex where I was like, I feel like you're intentionally pressing my buttons. And he would be like, why would I intentionally, like, I don't know what your buttons are. And I used to be like, no, he's intentionally doing this. But looking back, I'm like, now that I know what I know, it's like, okay, those were literally like, it's just how life works. Like, we're mirrors for each other, so they're going to bring up exactly our insecurities.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you can learn that skill alone with your closest relationships, that when they're making you angry, triggering you, you feel some kind of way about your exchange with them, is to be able to pause and say, why is this upsetting me so much? What do I need to learn from it? Because what they're doing isn't necessarily their intention. They're just mirroring whatever it is that you need to look within yourself to
Mhm.
resolve that issue. And it
Yeah.
takes practice. It's not going to happen overnight.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you can work with your partner to be able to create that safe space in between where, like, okay, stop. This doesn't feel very good right now. You're doing and saying XYZ, and paraphrase, clarify, right? I
Yeah.
do this with my husband all the time. Did you mean to say what you said?
Mhm.
Well, no, but I do think it's important, you know, and if what he's saying is important to him and it's triggering me,
Mhm.
okay, so what is it about what he's saying that I need to look into within myself?
Mhm.
You know, and not making it personal. Like your partner isn't necessarily, and this is not true for everyone, but in some cases, your partner isn't doing something deliberately, like you said,
Yeah.
to purposefully hurt you, you know? In some cases, if you do know that is the case, then you obviously have to act accordingly. But if you are in a relationship where you know that your spouse cares about you, you're in a committed relationship, you know, you want to build a future together. If your partner's pissing you off, you know, you said this and that, and it made me really upset, you know, and I think I should look into that. Why did
Mhm.
I feel dismissed? Why did I feel like I wasn't good enough? Why did I feel like you made me feel unimportant? Nobody can make you feel unimportant.
Mhm.
You make yourself through the exchange feel unimportant. Why
Yeah.
is you
Mhm.
know? And the coaching experience or the lifestyle of it, I say, is nothing but curiosity.
Mhm.
You know, treat everything with curiosity, and you will continuously learn about yourself, your
Mhm.
partner, your kids, all the people around you. And that's how you continue to grow
Mhm.
and learn.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I feel like even with our kids, especially, it's like parents are so used to trying to mold their kids to what they want them to be, and they're their own individual person. So it's like I try my best, even though my son is only about to be 3 years old. I enjoy watching him and like his personality unfold and what he likes, what he dislikes.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny because he's in that stage where he just wants to do everything he wants to do. And I'm trying to teach him, how to, we could do things that mommy likes and we can do things that baby likes so it can be fair. And so,
Yeah.
but I have realized so many times where, something triggered me where, I used to get mad and like yell whenever he would make a mess, but then I had to look within myself and realize I actually saw the child, Sonya, getting yelled at for making messes, but it's not like I meant to do it. My brain wasn't developed enough at the time to even
Right.
know what I was doing. And so I saw that in him too. And it was allowed me to be able to relax my nervous system about it and actually react differently to it. And so now it doesn't even bother me when he makes a mess. I'll like, it's like I'll just sometimes we'll join in together, and because he likes to jump in the puddles, the water puddles or something, and then I'll be like, okay, now we got to clean it up. And actually now he's better at helping me clean it up since I'm not having
Right.
a big reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that takes me back to when my girls were about 3 or 4 and it was raining really hard outside, and there was always this thing with my mom, like, "Don't go outside and get wet, you're gonna get sick."
Hmm.
Right? Like, a wet head means that, you're gonna get sick.
Yeah.
Latin families are like, "You gotta wear a sweater, and if your head gets cold, you're gonna get sick." So
Hmm.
going outside and playing in the rain was a no-no, you know?
Hmm.
And my kids were just, they were like 3, one was 3, the other one was 2, and they were just dying to go outside and play, and I'm like, "No, it's wet outside, you're gonna get sick." And then I just stopped and said, I realized in that moment how much joy I was keeping away from my kids based on an old story,
Hmm.
which I was it even really true?
Yeah.
You know? And I
Yeah.
caught myself and I was like, I can't believe, but that's what I'm saying. The trauma, it's a reaction that happens in the body. It's not in the mind all the time. Sure,
Yeah.
you can rationalize it later, but initially it happens in the body,
Mhm.
which is what led me to say, no, you can't go outside and play. You
Yeah.
know? And I finally just let it go and I let them go outside and play and they were running wild, jumping on puddles. I
Mhm.
mean, soaked. The laughter,
Mhm.
the laughter, the joy in their eyes. And I have videos of it.
Yeah.
And allowing yourself to let go of the old story to bring in that joy.
Mhm.
Not only did I bring joy into my kids and this new generation, but it healed something inside of me, which was a joy that I wasn't allowed to have at
Mhm.
their age,
Right.
you know? And as you make those micro changes, because they may feel very insignificant at the time, it opens up so much healing for yourself. And
Mhm.
if you can stack those over time, as you're doing something different and better for your kids, you can go back in time and
Mhm.
heal yourself
Yeah.
all at the same time,
Mhm.
and that's what you talk about with your stories, the quantum leap.
Mhm.
You don't need access to the future or believe that you've lost your opportunity because it's in the past. No, there is no there's no time in quantum. You can leap backwards to present to future
Mhm.
simultaneously. And they say when you're doing the work, you're healing 7 generations before you
Mhm.
as you're healing the next 7 generations ahead.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
definitely.
we're mothers for a reason.
Mhm.
We are mothers for a reason. They say you teach a man, you teach a man.
Mhm.
You teach a mother, you heal and teach generations.
Mhm.
So I believe we have a responsibility to be able to do that, to create better, more wholehearted humans in the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree 100%. I feel like that's like our mission right now. Even with because you said you have 2 girls, but even with me having a son, I feel like it's my duty now to teach him how to bring his feminine side in, because we all have a masculine and
Mhm.
feminine energies that we have to balance. And so for too long, we've been in a masculine encoded, just super masculinized environment. And so I believe men are even meant to, bring their feminine side in, as far as um, getting more in touch with their emotions and that emotional intelligence, and their intuition as well, because that
Mhm.
was given to us for a reason. We were given an intuition to actually follow it. It's really, um, if we really take a look at our intuition, like, it's never wrong.
No, it's
every
not.
time, every time we ignored it, it was always like things that happened because of that.
Mhm.
And so when you actually follow it and start to really get in touch with yourself, like we've been talking about, it's really amazing, like the things that you're capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And being human to your kids, going
Mhm.
back to the leadership concept, a lot of leaders in corporate settings or in, higher roles, they think that you have to have all the answers all the time because you're the leader. And the same applies at home with your children. You
Mhm.
don't have to have all the answers 100% of the time. Sometimes I tell my girls, I don't know. I
Mhm.
really don't know, but can we find out together?
Yeah.
And it gives my kids an opportunity and permission by giving myself permission not to know everything. It gives them permission not to know everything, but the leadership skill to say, okay, well, what can I do to find out? And
Mhm.
that puts the power back to them versus them waiting for someone else to hand something, whether it's physical, metaphorical, or whatever it is, down to them. I don't want to raise girls who feel like they have to pause and wait because that's what I taught them. You know, for me, my mom always, she didn't necessarily hand things down to me, but energetically, she wanted me tied to her because her identity, you know, was tied to mine. I had to be what she wanted me to be. And I didn't want to do that with my kids because it robs you of the opportunity to explore who you truly are, however that unfolds for you. And I don't want them to have to undo so much like I had to find myself. Like, what would their life in future be if all they had to do is learn how to be?
Right.
Right? Like,
yeah. Just learn how to be and grow into themselves versus trying to be like everyone else.
Yeah. And undo all this unnecessary stories and drama and trauma that were just passed down over and over and over again. And my mission in the last 5 years, because they're 10, almost 10 and 11, is that now that they're older, they have a different level of comprehension. You know, they're little people now. They have interests and they have, you know, their own style and they like wearing their hair like this. You know, they're becoming their own. Is to be able to give them enough space for them to do that. My only role at this point is very similar to what I do with coaching. I'm a guide where at this point in their life, you know, I put guardrails to keep them safe. And I do it far enough where they feel like they have the freedom to be themselves. And I just steer them in the direction that keeps them safe. As I go along asking them inquisitive questions of why are you doing what you're doing? What is your thought process, you know, from what you're doing and what you're not doing? Have you considered this? Versus me doing this to them.
Right.
Believe me, it happens because I'm human.
Yeah, of course.
And I can hear and sometimes see my mother come through. But because I have the training, I can stop myself in my tracks. And I sometimes tell my kids, like, you know, that was wrong. Can I try again? So I course correct in real time. And I don't hide that from them.
Yeah.
I want them to see that I have the opportunity to course correct in that moment. And what's interesting is because kids do learn by watching us that they are also doing that. You know, my oldest has a mouth on her. She's super witty and incredibly smart. And she'll snap and say certain things, and I'll just give her this look. No anger, just no reaction. She hears and feels my energy. And what she'll do now is like, can I rephrase? Like, she's taking it back because she realizes, like, okay, I think if I want to get what I want, I'm going to try that again, because disrespect and sassiness isn't necessarily going to get you what you want 100% of the time. Like, you have to still show respect, right? But in our household, it's a different conversation. It's a different dynamic than what we both grew up with. And I'm actually finding my leadership and coaching experience so much more enjoyable working with them. Because in my experience, like, the first 6 months of working with like a C-level person is unraveling all the past drama of what happened to them when they were 7 and their dad was busy and all they wanted to do was play and all they saw was rage from their parent, you know? Or their mother was never around. All those things, I have to help my clients literally unravel that, have them acknowledge and validate it, and reframe it before they can actually move forward. So if I don't have to do that, I'm literally using my parenting as my kids as guinea pigs, I guess. Like, what would it look like?
Yeah.
Right? If I'm using the same skills I'm using with midlife people now when they're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I'm building leaders from the core.
Mm-hmm.
And I make sure, along with my husband, that we have an environment in our home that it is a fertile ecosystem for them to be able to set root,
Mm-hmm.
grounded root as to who they are and who they want to become. And we nurture that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And we don't punish our kids, but we do have accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And we hold them to it. And we're very clear on our communication of what is expected of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't follow through with those things, which we all agree to, there are consequences, because I'm preparing you for real life.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be an employee and you're not following through with your job role, there's consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the first consequence, you get written up. The second, third, fourth consequence, you get fired. Well, those are basic skills we have to teach you for you to function in this world.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have the fundamentals of being self-leaders, essentially I'm working myself out of a job, which is exactly what I want. I don't want a codependent relationship with my children. When I'm 65, 75, and they're out in the world, I want them to want me,
Mm-hmm.
not to have to need me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my goal for the next 25 years.
Yeah, I understand that completely. That's definitely the goal, is just to constantly be evolving and helping them evolve in the way that they're meant to evolve. So I love this. Yeah, I definitely love this conversation because I feel like it resonates on a big level for me.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's the next generation of true leadership.
Mhm.
Is why wait until we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s to learn it? Like, it's time for us. I think the world is ready for it.
Yeah.
You know, we have more conversations about these things than we ever did before.
Mhm.
Let's just find a way to translate it so that our younger generations can start learning them earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely time in this world, and I feel like you said, it's more talked about. It's more people are kind of like waking up to this idea. And so I definitely believe that this is just the beginning of of just creating a better world,
Mhm.
because we are creators. Like, we are creators of our reality, and then the more we co-create with each other, basically, like, we really can build a better world.
Absolutely. I believe that 1,000%.
So I'm definitely and I'm excited for the future. I feel like this is like an amazing time to be alive,
Mhm.
um and just, cultivating this cultivating this. So I'm definitely excited for it, and I really thank you too for coming on to my podcast as a guest.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too. But I don't want to hold you too long, so I will ask the my closing wisdom question that I ask everybody, and that's basically, and not everyone might believe in this, but I truly believe that we are all divine beings.
Mhm.
And so my question is usually like, what is one truth that you found about our divinity? Um,
I think it goes back to what you talk about in your podcast, is that quantum leaping.
mhm,
That as we become more aware of how powerful the universe is and that we're truly a part of it,
mhm,
that quantum leaping isn't just some scientific theory.
mhm,
You know, we are capable of doing that. It's just being curious enough and willing to put yourself out there and
mhm,
know that that's available to you. And that the most practical way you can do that is to heal yourself. And remember
mhm,
that as you heal yourself, you're healing those 7 generations before you,
mhm.
simultaneously as you're healing 7 generations in front of you.
Yeah.
And It's no accident that you and I and others get to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Because it really is in the quantum world, they talk about it's the unified field. And basically, when you are able to bring yourself back into that unified field, which actually is in your heart, we can connect in a whole different way. And
Yeah,
so,
and for those who are very like analytical and practical, which I can relate, you know, if that concept sounds so foreign and you do need scientific proof, you know, heart math is a international institution that has studied the human heart for decades and decades, and they have thousands of studies on how powerful the resonance is of the heart. And depending on what energy field you're in, whether it's positive or negative, it ripples up to like 6 miles wide. And
yeah.
you're impacting everything alive around you by the vibration of your heart. And our heart is actually the first organ that develops in the fetus. So we think that our brain, we've been living in this world of the brain and knowledge is so
Yeah.
which it is, but it's only a fraction
Yeah.
of the power that our heart actually has.
I
And
love that. Yeah, I didn't know that about that's the first organ that's developed.
yeah.
But I definitely have studied about the Heart Math Institution, and I know that science has proved that we do have an electromagnetic field, and our thoughts and feelings go out into the universe. And so whatever those thoughts and feelings are, negative or positive, bring back our outer reality, basically. And so I've even seen, and this is why I talk about quantum a lot, is because I've seen physical shifts in my reality just in doing the inner work and getting to know my heart and what my heart, who I truly am here to be, basically. So,
Absolutely. I think that is truly the key to humanity, is becoming more one with our heart.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Well, it was definitely amazing conversation.
Sonya.
And so if anybody wants to get a hold of you for your coaching services, where would they get a hold of you?
You could find me at lifeleaderscoaching.com, and I'm mostly active on LinkedIn as Veronica Taylor.
Okay, awesome. Great. And I will also put that in the description on the YouTube channel as well, so that you guys can reach out to her. If because I truly believe that everybody, like, competition is a fear-based thing. So to me, when you're actually leading from the heart, you realize that there's infinite, there's infinite people out there. So there's no need for competition. It's all about like who resonates with who. If you resonate with this person, reach out to this person. And so for me, I'm all about, just love and
I appreciate that. Thank you. Likewise.
So we will end it on that note then there today. And you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.